Now I'm very happy to welcome back a longtime horse bettor and handicapper in Sig from wagertalk.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Sig Las Vegas. Sig, you are back on the show. It's spring. That means it is horse racing season. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing well, Kiev. And for me, it's always horse racing season. But for the rest of the public, this is the Derby Trail. This is horse racing season.
That's right. Exactly. It's always horse racing season for you. For the odds breakers, we start to talk about horse racing throughout the big Triple Crown events. And, that's kind of how it is. And it's great that you have so much success horse racing. And I'm not going to bring anybody on that doesn't specialize in horse racing throughout the whole year. So that's you, and you're the man. And I'm excited to talk some ponies with you, my friend. But we have a lot going on. The last of the prep races are really this weekend in general, right? We have the BlueGrass coming up. We have the Santa Anita, and we have the Wood Memorial. And is there any? I think there's one more prep race after this.
Yeah, next Saturday, Keeneland runs the Lexington, which is sort of like a consolation bracket. There's 20 points available for the win there. If somebody's teetering on the edge, which I'm going to mention a horse a little later in this broadcast that is teetering on the edge to get those last points to get into that Derby starting gate.
All right, well, there you go. So the Lexington at Keeneland on April 15th. It's funny, you got the BlueGrass and the Lexington back to back. It's like Keeneland's going to be a very popular track here over the next 2 weeks. And I'm excited to talk about the BlueGrass with you. But before we get into all that, let's talk a little Derby, my friend. Now, obviously not a lot of noise this year yet. I mean, Forte had a wonderful finish in the Florida Derby last week, and I saw him close. I thought he was completely out of it as well, and I watched a few replays this morning. But what do you think about that horse and some of the other odds to win the Kentucky Derby that are out early?
Yeah, I mean, right now to me, Forte looks like the clear cut. He's going to be your morning line favorite, I think, unless something very strange happens this weekend for the Kentucky Derby. He's your favorite in the futures betting. Right now, I'm looking Circa's got him at plus 315. So just a little more than 3-1, which is higher than I think you're going to get on the first Saturday of May if nothing changes here. But he's a Todd Pletcher colt. He's out of violence. He won last week's Florida Derby, cementing himself as that most likely favorite here. He's won 5 of 6 career races, including last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile, which history has said the winner of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile does not do well on the Derby Trail normally. So he's looking to break that tradition here. But there was another horse that ran last week that was pretty impressive as well. That was Angel of Empire. He won the Arkansas Derby at Oaklawn for trainer Brad Cox with Flavian Pratt aboard. Had a nice big late run and took over that race. So those are the two right now. I think that, it's recency bias because that was just last week's race, but they both have looked very strong leading into the Derby here.
Who had the better speed between them rated?
I'm pretty sure Forte did. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I'm pretty sure Forte ended up just with that big late close.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. So in Angel of Empire right now, I'm looking at a few books, 14-1. So a little bit better odds than Forte at 3.5-1, like you said, 3.15 here at Circa. And so definitely want to look at those kind of coming in. So there's also some other shots on here, like Tappet Trice, who's running this Saturday. He's 8-1. Practical Move is 10-1. King Barnes 12-1. I don't even know how to say this one. So Derma Sadaki, he's
a Japanese horse. Yeah.
Is this one of those UAE Derby ones? He's like 12-1 as well, and Angel Empire 14-1. So first of all, are all these horses already qualified in, or are some of them possibly not even going to make it?
Yeah, no, all those horses that you just mentioned there already have their way earned into the Derby. There's a Japanese path to the Derby now and a European path, so they each have one horse that qualifies that may or may not make the trip. It sounds like the Japanese horse is going to make the trip. I haven't heard anything about the European horse right now, though. So they both have spots in there if they want those spots. But like Forte, Angel of Empire, Two Phils, King's Barn, all definitely have their spots in there. To me, if you have 50 points right now on the road to the Kentucky Derby, you had that spot in the starting gate if you won. But there's a lot of horses on the outside looking in, or that's sort of in that 40 to 50 point range, 30 to 50 point range, that need a good race this weekend to earn their spot.
Well, let's kind of just take a look at some of these. Obviously, Forte, like I said, 3.5 to 1 here, and that could hold up. So I'm curious, like, do you, if you're really like a horizontal better, you're going to take Forte win play show. Maybe you just take him now and forget about it. But besides him, is there any like any other horses that are sticking out to you, like maybe the 33 to ones or 20 to ones?
I think one of the horses I think with longer odds that is attractive to me, I think on Derby Day is going to be Two Phils. He won the Jeff Ruby Stakes at Turfway a couple weeks ago, but he had good showings at two prep races at the fairgrounds in the Lecomte and in the Risen Star. And he's one of these horses that has a big late closing kick that could take over late in the Derby, like we saw last year with a little horse named Rich Strike that still sort of burns me a little bit.
Rich Strike. Well, there you go. To bring that one up, didn't you? Two Phils. Who's his trainer?
Two Phils is with
sorry to put you on the spot here. Sometimes, I'm sitting here questioning, like I'm asking you questions that I didn't even prep you for. So I do apologize. But I mean, obviously the Derby's a long time away right now, so there's plenty of time to look into all this, and obviously we got to keep focused. So I just was curious on who might be his trainer.
Okay, I apologize. Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. I can't think of it off the top of my head right now.
No worries. Let's move on to a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. And you sounds like you kind of studied up on the BlueGrass Stakes a little bit. What can you tell us about this race coming up this weekend at Keeneland?
Well, Keeneland's my favorite track in the world, and this Keeneland Spring Meet is my favorite time of the year. It's only 15 racing days, but it's a beautiful part of the country. It's the most gorgeous track I've been to. A lot of people argue with you, Santa Anita's better with the mountains and so forth, but there's something about being in the heart of where they breed the horses and bring them up that just it's something magical about Keeneland. But there are 22 horses that have won the BlueGrass Stakes that have gone on to win the Kentucky Derby. With that said, though, the last time that happened was 1991 with a horse named Straight Gold. There are 5 trainers that have won the Bluegrass 3 times, including Todd Pletcher, who has tomorrow Saturday's favorite, morning line favorite with Tapit Trice. So he may take the lead there if Tapit Trice is able to put on a nice show.
Okay, all right, there you go, Tapit Trice, and he was like one of the favorite ones, kind of coming in here. So, what do you like so much about Keeneland that you mentioned it?
I mean, they just respect the game so much. I mean, you go there, everybody's dressed up to the nines. It's hard to describe. I mean, it's sort of one of those things you have to experience, but it just, and I hear this, I have never been to Saratoga. I know, sacrilege. I hear the same thing about Saratoga, but it just seems like, I mean, it's an event. I mean, this is Lexington, Kentucky. It's an hour from Louisville where Churchill's at. And I mean, it's about an hour and a half from Cincinnati. It just seems like people converge on Lexington for this time of year. And it's an event. It's what matters to this part of the world for those 2-3 weeks.
Okay, well, definitely with the 2 big races coming up. And Larry Ravelli is the trainer for Two Phils that I just looked up here. He doesn't stick out like Pletcher or Baffert or Cox, but he's been there for a while, right?
Yeah, he's not a huge name out there, but I mean, he's a trainer that I definitely take a look at when I see his name in the program.
Nice. So how long is this race? And if you mentioned it, sorry, when I was looking up Two Phils.
Yeah, they're going a mile and 1/8 here at Keeneland over the dirt surface. And if you guys watched the Breeders' Cup last fall, that's where they held the Breeders' Cup with Keeneland. They had the track usually in a really great shape and should be in fantastic shape. Definitely the turf course here for the next 15 days of the meet.
All right, well, there you go. And like you said, 5-2 is what Tapit Trice is going off as. Do you think the Saez looks like it's going to be the Jackie, obviously, with Pletcher here? So you think these odds stick, or you think these go down even?
I think we're going to go down a little bit more there. I mean, I see the top 3 there on the morning line are verifying Tapit Trice and excuse me. Sorry, I lost my place.
Oh, no, you said that morning line was 3-1. Yeah.
Blazing Sevens, the Chad Brown horse, should be your top 3 there, I think, in the betting interest. So Blazing Sevens is actually 6-1. He came off a bad race in the Fountain of Youth at Gulfstream last month. So I think you're going to get a little bit of value with that one.
With Erad Ortiz as the jockey.
Correct.
Looks like projected for this one. Okay, so we have our PPs here. Tapit Trice is in against the rail. Is that a good position to be in this race, or is that a bad position to be in?
That is not the best position. And I read an interview with Pletcher. He wasn't real happy with the draw there, but I mean, he just had to deal with it. Tapit Trice put himself in a lot of trouble in the Tampa Bay Derby with a very poor start. He ended up starting 9th out of the 12-horse field that day. And even at the top of the stretch, he was in 8th place. Saez mounted a huge rally out of him that got him up there for the win over a Classic Car Wash coming on the stretch. But, I mean, he used all of his horse that day.
Okay, well, there you go. So not a great position. So I'm guessing you might try to play a little bit against him. We'll get into that part. But this field that I pulled up here, is this a strong field or is it really chalk heavy?
I would not call this chalk heavy. In general, I mean, so like I said earlier, it's hard to grade the strength of this 3-year-old field right now. I think it's a pretty competitive field. The 3 big guys, Pletcher, Chad Brown, Brad Cox, all have 1 entry in this field here. But there are a few horses in the field I feel have the potential to take a step forward here. The thing about the road to the Kentucky Derby is there's so many ways to earn your way into the starting gate, and so many trainers will ship their horses so they don't face each other. You see it a lot with Pletcher. You see it a lot with Baffert. Cox has so many entries, too, that I think he has 2 or 3 in the wood going up to New York this weekend and only shipping 1 to Keeneland, which is basically an hour away from where he trains in Louisville. So Pletcher already has King's Barn, who won the Louisiana Derby 2 weeks ago in there. He's got Forte, who won the Florida Derby last week in there. And if Tapit Trice gets his way in there via the BlueGrass, he's already got 3 of the top horses in that field.
Wow. That would be a stacked field for Pletcher here coming in. So I find that very interesting. Okay, well, without giving up too much information on your card, obviously, how are you going to attack this race?
Basically, my plan right now is here. I don't like playing chalk, and I'm sure you're aware of that here. But Tapit Trice looks very strong against this field. The biggest challengers, like I mentioned, are going to be Verifying and Blazing Sevens from the Cox and the Brown barns here. And my top 4 that I've landed on so far, this is could change by Saturday, but right now I'm on the 1 Tapit Trice, 8 Blazing Sevens, 3 Verifying, and the 4 Classic Car Wash, who's 12-1 in there. There's a number of horses, though, I'm going to use underneath. Like I may look at an exacta playing the 1 over the 3, 4, 8, but then if I do a trifectas or place of trifectas, you're looking to use the 1 with the 3, 4, and 8, maybe in that second spot, but in that third spot there's some horses like 6 Scooby Quando, 7 Sun Thunder, 10 Rays Kane, and one that I find kind of an enigma is the 11 Mendelssohn's March, who has only had 2 races to his career, basically both this year. Hasn't raced the greatest stakes, hasn't raced any other Derby preps, went maiden to allowance to right into the Grade 1 Bluegrass here. So he's a horse I'm going to use a little bit more lightly on some of my tickets, but I think he's more of a wild card.
Okay, so those 4 and your wild card was which one again?
The wild card of those, the ones that I'll use underneath, Mendelssohn's March is the one I think is more of a wild card.
Okay. Number 11. Yes. He's 20-1. Okay. 20-1 with that one. Okay. Nope. Thank you for that. So when you said that, I missed that part. So good stuff there. And make sure you guys follow Sig at Sig Las Vegas. Get his plays at wagertalk.com. Good stuff for Keeneland. Let's move on a little bit to the Santa Anita Derby here. Now, the funny thing about Santa Anita Derby is that, that Pletcher going to be there? Maybe, but I'm guessing Tim Yakteen's going to be there. And how are these horses going to work for the Derby? Because as we know, Pletcher's still banned there this year.
Baffert's banned there. Pletcher's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep saying Baffert. Bob Baffert is still banned there. Sorry, Pletcher. I totally disrespected Pletcher.
Still, but he amazingly was able to transfer some horses to former assistant Tim Yakteen, who actually Yakteen has one of his own in here in Practical Move, who is your morning line favorite, but he's also now listed as the trainer on National Treasure, who's 3-1 in your morning line. It was a former Baffert trained horse. As far as I can tell, Baffert's still doing all the training here. Yakteen's the trainer in name only to earn him Derby points to get him a spot in that Kentucky Derby starting field in here. But there is another horse in here that I'm very interested in. Well, Practical Move, let's touch on Practical Move real quick here. He won the San Felipe here last month at Santa Anita. He's got a nice, strong pedigree in there, and he looks like a good horse out of Practical Joke. The horse that I'm most interested in that field, though, is a horse called Go Rocket Ride for trainer Richard Mandella. He's only making his third career start. He broke his maiden impressively just this past January. And then he ran second to Practical Move, who he's going to see here again in that San Felipe at Santa Anita last month. I'm looking for him to take another step forward for a veteran trainer in Mandela, who had a pretty lightly raced horse named Flightline, who won last year's Breeders' Cup Classic and has been retired to stud. So I think Mandela might have something magical there. Wouldn't Go Rocket Ride. Unfortunately, you're only getting 3-1 in the morning line there. I think he's going to take money. Santa Anita, the favorites here are going to take money. The 5, the 6, and the 3, I think, are going to see the most action at Santa Anita here. So I don't know if you're going to get a whole lot of value there. But if you think you can upset the Practical Move, the 2 Yak-Teen, and the National Treasure, I think Go Rocket Ride's where you want to go.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny. The National Treasure is 3-1. Go Rocket Ride, spell LSU style, GAUX. Go Rocket Wild, like Go Tigers.
Right.
And 3-1. So yeah, unfortunately, very chalky here too. Then and so, I mean, it looks like these favorites are pretty big favorites because you see some of these others at 50-1. Desmond Silver, or however you say that name, one in a Vermilion, 15-1. Low Expectations is 30-1. I guess he has low expectations. That fits his name.
He does have low expectations, but you have to remember Baffert dominates these 2-year-old and 3-year-old races at Santa Anita, so you don't find a whole lot of trainers that bring up a lot of horses based on, hey, we're going to make a path to go to the Kentucky Derby just because of the domination Baffert has in Southern California.
All right, no, good stuff. You know, it's what's interesting is I'm not seeing a lot of futures on National Treasure or Practical Move. Is it because of the Baffert ban, or these horses just not yet qualify? Why are the reasons?
Well, yeah. I mean, you didn't see a whole lot of the futures because I think a horse like National Treasure doesn't actually have any Derby points right now. Yeah. He's probably going to need a first or a second place finish in the Santa Anita Derby to secure those points here. Practical Move, though, I did see here at Circa. So I'm at 10-1 right now.
You're right. So Practical Move is, but the other one.
Yeah, Yak-Teen had Practical Move for his entire career so far. So he's actually his trainee, whereas National Treasure is just sort of a paper trainer.
Yeah, and Go Rocket Ride's in there at 25-1 too. So
right.
That's interesting. I mean, you gave us 2 fills for the Kentucky Derby, but I wonder if Go Rocket Ride has a little life in him. So is he a closer, or do we know about him yet?
He's basically, I mean, he hasn't really demonstrated either style yet. He's sort of stayed on the pace and ran with the leaders here. So whether he has that big closing kick yet or not, I think we're going to find out a lot more about him on Saturday. But that 25-1, let's see, that's actually better than the 17-1 Circus got him at right now. Might not be a bad if you want to speculate a little bit on a horse. That could be a horse that could surprise if he has a big Saturday. Those odds will definitely drop.
Well, if you're going to bet him this Saturday, you might as well bet him for Kentucky at 25-1
exactly.
because it makes no sense not to, because you're not going to get those good odds if he wins it. So that would be definitely my thoughts coming into here. And since I'm not in mid-season form yet, moving on to the Wood Memorial, we can finally get way of Bob Baffert, and I can start using it right. Pletcher, the good guy, coming up here, has 3 horses in the Wood Memorial. I mean, geez. This guy could be stacked in the Kentucky Derby there, Sig.
He could. I mean, definitely. I mean, he's already got 2 in the starting gate already, and Kings Barnes and Forte. It looks like Tap It Thrice is going to have definitely a spot in there too. And if one of these 3 horses in this Wood Memorial field, he has a Dreamlike at 7-2. He has Croupy at 12-1, and he's got Classic Catch at 10-1 in this field. If one of those can win the Wood here, they can definitely get themselves a spot in the gate as well. Fletcher could have 4 or 5 horses in that Derby starting gate that first Saturday of May, which kind of puts the odds in his favor.
Yeah, I would say it would be Pletcher versus the field. I'm sure you're going to see some odds and some books for that here. But, Wood Memorial coming up at Aqueduct in New York. So any thoughts on this one kind of coming up? Is this going to be as chalky as the other 2?
We know what, Kiev. I did a quick handicap on this one this morning, and I landed on the favorites, unfortunately, here. I think the 13 hit show for Brad Cox and Manny Franco is the the horse probably to beat in this field here. The Pletcher Dreamlike is on the inside. Again, Pletcher draws the rail with one of his horses. Pletcher, he has Jose Ortiz aboard for the ride here. Those two look like, as long as Ortiz can get a good start in this race, the two look like the two will be battling down the stretch here. Now, something to consider, though, the Wood Memorial hasn't produced a Kentucky Derby winner since 2000, and that was, I always pronounce this wrong, Fusaichi Pegasus.
Yes.
Last year's winner, Mo Donegal, went on to win the Belmont Stakes, and last year's runner-up, Early Voting, won to win the Preakness. So, I mean, the Wood Memorial was definitely a key race last year in the road to for the Triple Crown.
Interesting. Yeah, just couldn't get that Kentucky Derby win since 2000, Pegasus, but definitely made some noise in the Preakness and in the Belmont, it sounds. So that's interesting. So we landed on some chalk, but that's okay, because what you are doing this weekend is you are concentrating on one track, and that's Keeneland, correct?
That is correct. I'll be at Keeneland for the next 15 days starting tomorrow.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Where could our listeners benefit from your plays at Keeneland this weekend?
I will go on over to wagertalk.com. I'll have coverage of every day of the Keeneland meet. They race Friday and Saturday this week, and then they take Easter Sunday off. There'll be Wednesday through Sunday the following 2 weeks, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they close out the meet that last week of April before Churchill takes over here. I have daily coverage for full card selections and tickets, suggested tickets for exactas, trifectas, daily doubles, pick 3, pick 4, pick 5 plays, as well as Keeneland's got a special $3 all turf pick 3 that runs almost every day of the card, which has produced some very nice returns. It's all turf racing, which is, I think, it's a little tougher than dirt racing, the handicap here. And if you guys hurry right now, Wager Talk's running a special just through this Saturday. You can get my entire Keeneland meet for just $75. That's only $5 a card. The normal daily price is $9 for each day for the racing card.
Oh, that's a deal. That is great stuff. And Sig, you're the best. Make sure you guys check out Sig at Wager Talk. Sig, thank you so much for coming on, giving us some Kentucky Derby information as well as all these great races.
Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure, Kev.